Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV, and we are lifelong Catholics, and what we do is all for free, and for our love of Jesus Christ, and for our Holy Mother, the Church, and we will defend our Holy Mother, the Church. With this, with people waking up to knowing about the Great Reset and everything going on, many are still not fully connecting the dots on how far back this entire Great Reset was planned, and how it even stretches back to the early days when America was created after the War of Independence against Great Britain. and we're going to tell you all about it. And we welcome Brother Alexis to the show.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV. It's always an honor to be on this wonderful apostolate that you do for the Order. Now, when you told me about this, I found it absolutely fascinating. Someone hopefully one day will make a movie about it, because it is a real thriller. How no sooner does the United States get its liberty that the machinations to take it over went into effect. They lost the war, but then they began the diplomacy effort. So how did you discover this, and where does it all begin?
Well, how I discovered it was reading my cousin John Quincy Adams' diary, and I was like, okay, who's this George Hammond and his connection to everything going on? So then I went deep diving on the internet, and George Hammond is a ambassador from Great Britain to the United States. But while America was still free and under the Articles of Confederation, which it says in the Articles of Confederation that it has the duty to defend the Christian religion, and the states were in control, and that meant there were not envoys to welcome certain ambassadors, or that there were no ambassadors to other nations. And so we were free. We weren't controlled. In 1784, George Hammond and his counterparts in Britain grumbled about this. 3 years later, in 1787, the Masons passed illegally the Constitution by not having 100% majority to override the Articles of Confederation. And so we have the problems they gave us today. In 1794, George Hammond, now diplomat to the United States, sits down with John Quincy Adams, who is also a diplomat, not to Great Britain, but he will be working in Great Britain, in London, for the Hague, for the Netherlands. And so he has all of his dinners at his brother-in-law's place in New York City. But this dinner meeting is totally different. It doesn't exactly say it was at his brother-in-law's place. And another thing, it doesn't go into great detail of the conversation they have at dinner. And also, what is also another striking thing that is very weird, every time he has a dinner meeting, he tells exactly the menu he has, the menu the guest has. And in this, it's just a short, brief thing about him having dinner with George Hammond.
I think this is absolutely fascinating that it's in New York City in 1794 that the first effort of this plot against America and against the free peoples everywhere is hatched. and that Adams was there to catch it all. And so it's going to be very important that we listen to carefully. What did he say about this meeting, and what was Hammond trying to do?
Saturday, July 12th, 1794. Dined with Mr. Hammond, the British minister plenipotentiary. There was no other company, and we were tolerably sociable. It was the renewal of an old acquaintance, but I felt it necessary to be particularly cautious with the minister of a foreign nation, with whom the United States are now engaged in a controversy which bears a very serious aspect. He spoke of the late speech of the governor of Massachusetts, which appears to have given him much offense. He seemed to wish me to speak of that gentleman, and to expect that I should express not much respect for his character. I did not choose to gratify him, but spoke of the governor in general terms, and with respect I inquired if he had any further particulars than such as were public, relative to the late actions in Flanders. He said no. He affected to speak lightly of the Duke of York's defeat, as well as of the late proceedings in England in the suspension of the Habeas Corpus Act. The government there, he said, was infinitely stronger than ours, and even had fewer opposers. Personally, he said he wished well to our government and hoped it would continue, but he believed that two-thirds of the people were opposed to it, whereas in Great Britain there were not more than 1 in 100 hostile to their government. I told him that for the employment of force, the observation was just, and that our constituted authority could not venture upon measure, so decisive as were adopted by theirs, that as to the spirit of real hostility, I do not think existed in the proportion of two-thirds, nor even 1 in this country.
So Hammond is really trying to poo-poo the America right from the beginning. It's here you have that whole psychological game that they've been playing a long time, is to put you down and make you feel like you need them because they're superior to you. I don't know how many shysters I've run into in life that have this. It's the standard manipulative tactic of someone who's psychologically abusive. And what is your idea of what on in this meeting? What was Hammond aiming to do?
His role was to establish the Anglo-American establishment. Now, if you've watched the Corbett Report's videos on this and heard that same phrase uttered by Cecil Rhodes, that was to bring America back into the British Empire.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably a long-standing objective of British foreign policy. It would be their natural reaction having lost the war. Mm-hmm. And this meeting with Adams is when tensions with the United States were very, very tight over trade with the Netherlands, and they would erupt into full-blown war in 1812, the War of 1812. Now, Hammond, what do we know about Hammond himself and his life career, and how it intersects so many things that lead to the Pilgrim Society founded by Cecil Rhodes?
Yeah, so I took down some dates. Okay, let me get to his birth. Hammond was born in 1763 in East Riding of Yorkshire. He was a fellow of Merton College in Oxford. Hammond dies in 1853. In 1796, the Rothschilds take over the Bank of London. Cecil Rhodes was born in 1853 when Hammond dies. Lord Alfred Milner, Rhodes' right-hand man, born in 1854. Reginald Brett, man who had the ear of Queen Victoria. He was born in 1852. Hammonds was still alive. And William T. Stead, born in 1849. Hammond still alive.
Mhm.
Now, everything I just said has one connection, including the Rothschild Bank, Oxford University.
And you titled this program The Oxford Conspiracy, and this really spiked my curiosity. How many things involving the Pilgrim Society, which is Cecil Rhodes' Masonic plot to take over the government of the US, which achieved victory after the First World War, bringing the US into the First World, and has dominated our foreign policy since, so that America, the federal government in the United States isn't American, it's actually British, and it does the will of the lodges of England, has done so for more than a century now. But how is it that all this has to do with Oxford? Who are all the people associated with Oxford that are associated with this?
Yeah. It was. So, this is interesting because the Rothschild Bank funded Cecil Rhodes in the development of the British South African Diamond Company, and Leopold de Rothschild administered Rhodes' estate after his death in 1902, and helps to set up the Rhodes Scholarship scheme at Oxford University in 1873. And all the Rothschilds help do this. And if you ever received a Rhodes Scholarship, it is the Rothschilds who select you.
You mean like Bill Clinton was selected by the Rothschilds? Isn't he a Rhodes Scholar?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So everything about them is Oxford. The Pilgrim Society was Oxford, and this is one interesting thing. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Okay. It's it's just really interesting that that this Oxford deal was for the elite of the elite, and and it's just it's hard to put into words. It's every it just Oxford was Catholic, had Franciscan school there, and then everything about Oxford and all the schools in England went downhill. But for some reason, Cecil Rhodes and all these people chose Oxford to be the center of the New World Order movement. And it is just wherever they touched, like Oxford, like in Oxford, they had their own type, uh, intended or grips from Oxford spreading into different schools where Oxford would touch, like New College, All Souls College, all these little schools where you could go to study at Oxford through that school all had tentacle running back to Pilgrim Society and the secret elite who made it possible.
So anyone who's been a Rhodes Scholar today, they pretty much part of the Pilgrim Society.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of the Rhodes Scholarship was what? To take control of the American intelligentsia and bring it into the orbit of British foreign interests.
Yeah.
And how does Jim McGregor and Jerry Doherty have to do with all this?
These guys, two great Scottish historians. I don't know their faith, but they did some amazing research. And they go through every single one of these characters: Cecil Rhodes, Alfred Milner, Reginald Brett, William T. Stead, in great detail. And I have it linked on the show page. And this is what they write on expanding the Anglo-American primacy. There's that word again, which started from Hammond. Cecil Rhodes had long dreamed of Anglo-American unity, and in 1891 actually discussed the possibility of achieving it by Britain joining the United States. On his death, the secret elite developed an even greater appreciation of America's vast potential and the need for closer union. They adjusted the original concept of British race supremacy to Anglo-Saxon supremacy, so that Rhodes' dream had only to be slightly modified. They created a common ideology and a world outlook among the people of the United Kingdom and the United States, and instruments and practices of cooperation in order to pursue parallel policies. And it goes into Alfred Milner believed these goals should be pursued by secret political and economic elite influencing journalistic, educational, and propaganda agencies behind the scenes. The flow of money into the United States during the 19th century advanced industrial development to the immense benefit of the millionaires it created: Rockefeller, Carnegie, Morgan, Vanderbilt, and their associates. The Rothschilds represented the British interests either directly through front companies or indirectly through agencies they controlled. And small groups of massively rich individuals on both sides of the Atlantic knew one another well, and the secret elite in London initiated a very select secretive dining club, the Pilgrims, that brought them together on a regular basis. On 11th July 1902, an inaugural meeting was held at the Carlton Hotel of what became known as the London chapter of the Pilgrim Society. It was to have a select membership limited by individual scrutiny to 500. Ostensibly, the Pilgrims are created to promote goodwill and good friendship and everlasting peace between Britain and the United States, but its highly secretive, exclusive membership leaves little doubt as to its real purpose. Then 7 months later, the American chapter was formally created on similarly exclusive lines. This was a pool of wealth and talent that the secret elite drew together to promote its agenda in the years preceding the First World War. Behind the image of the Pilgrim Fathers, the persecuted pioneers of Christian values, this elite cabal advocated the idea that Englishmen and Americans would promote international friendship through their pilgrimage to and fro across the Atlantic. It presented itself as a spontaneous movement to promote democracy across the world, and the most of the membership probably believed that. But the Pilgrims included a select collective of the wealthiest figures in both Britain and the United States who were deeply involved with the secret elite. They shared Rhodes' dream and wanted to be party to it.
Oh, I hear that phrase, bring democracy to the world. Who's constant? That's been like the politics in the United States for the last last 50, 60 years. Bring democracy to the world. And that always means enriching the globalists and with American blood and throwing American veterans in the dirt afterwards.
Yeah.
This helps explain a lot why our government no longer gives a bleep about American citizens. and only concerned about the big interests. But I can add an important fact because I have a relative who is investigated, or I should say, documented the history of every major corporation in the United States founded between 1820 and 1920. And in a high percentage of them, and nearly all of them, who is the co-founder or the financial backing of the company? It's a Jew. And I don't think that's a coincidence, because I think that they got their funding by the Rothschilds. So a lot of the industrial development of the United States has strong contacts with these power structures that are not spoken of at all in American history books. We made to think that our history is ours and that we are free, but if you step back and look at what's going on in the U.S. over the last 250 years, you see we're losing more and more freedom, and America's becoming less and less American. So we can see that from what you cited in the dates, that we're only talking about two generations. By the time Hammond dies, the founders of the Pilgrim Society are being born. So we're not. It's not really that difficult to see how the ideas of Hammond lived on through Oxford. What are some of the other facts we can add to this to show that there has been a concerted effort of British Freemasonry to get control of America?
All right. Yeah. Oh, while I look for this, it was a week ago that they were talking about the Anglo-Saxons are so racist on Twitter, and people are like, why is this trending? And if you read this piece by McGregor, that this Anglo-Saxons is what Pilgrim Society talks about.
Yeah, the globalists are actually mostly Anglo-Saxons, and they're very racist people. They actually think that they're racially superior to everyone. And we've already detailed in other programs how these racists are the ones who actually created Hitler. Racism doesn't come from Nazi Germany. It doesn't come from the German people. It comes from the Masonic lodges of England and the United States, and these globalists. And
yeah, so in Britain, he goes on, at least 18 members of the secret elite, including Lords Rothschild, Curzon, Northcliffe, Esser, Sir Edward Grey, Arthur Balfour, attended Pilgrim dinners, though the regularity of their attendance is difficult to establish. Such is the perennial problem with the secret groups. We know something about the guests invited to dinner, but not what was discussed between courses. We know that from the diary. He couldn't talk about it. And the New York members included both Rockefeller and Morgan dynasties and many men in senior government posts. The power elite in America was New York centered, carried great influence in domestic international politics, was heavily indulgent of Yale, Harvard, and Princeton universities. And within a short period of time, they created American version of what Carroll Quigley termed the triple front penetration of politics, the press, and education. The Pilgrim Society brought together American money and British aristocracy, royalty, presidents, diplomatic representatives. It was indeed a special relationship. So, to even go further, to become even more demonic, the Round Table Group of Cecil Rhodes started a chapter in New York City to develop its links between Westminster and Washington and high finance in the city of London and Wall Street. It was supported by Rockefeller and Morgan, managed in secret, hidden from the electorate and politicians, and normally its meetings went unreported in the press. Members aimed to gain political influence and set up the political agenda in U.S., but they were rarely willing to speak out in public. All was to be carried out in secret. How dangerous are to believe they have the capacity to think and plan for the world's good, impervious to the will of the people, disdainful of democracy itself.
And this I noticed growing up that you never, why is it the ultra wealthy in America never say anything in public, or at least are never quoted by the newspapers?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it we hear 24/7 what Trump is saying, what Biden is saying, but no one tells us what the Rockefellers are saying, what the Morgans are saying, what the Brown Brothers Harriman Bank is doing? The highest elite are like in a cloud of concealment. You don't know what, because they're the ones really controlling it. If you found out that they're really controlling the country and your vote doesn't mean squat, then maybe you would rebel. Maybe you would realize you're a slave and that they're enslaving you. Maybe you'd start noticing what's happening. And this is why they've totally undermined education in the United States, so that you don't open books, you don't buy books. They give you that cell phone to distract you 24/7, so that you don't read and find out what's really going on in the world. And it doesn't take long. I mean, in 6-9 months, you can really red pill yourself quite a while, because the information's out there. It's public. They're not hiding it.
Mm-hmm.
And once you realize who's really running the country and why your vote has never achieved the change that you wanted when you voted for that. Why do you, when you vote for that politician, he goes to DC, he starts doing something totally different? This is what's important to know. And so the Oxford conspiracy was a long-term plan to get America into the circle of Britain, and we're pretty much there. I wonder if Brexit is also a project of the Oxford group, because England united with Europe doesn't really work if you want a British-American alliance. And I always thought that England was the follower of America, not the one that's really in control. But now that you uncovered this, it's quite amazing. And if you go through the history of the 19th and 20th century, you're going to find a lot of Rhodes Scholars all over the place. And you just look up current members of the Rhodes Scholars, how many have been in the U.S. government. It's quite amazing. Even on Fox News, didn't they recently have a Rhodes Scholar on, and they were praising her because she was a Rhodes Scholar?
Yeah.
And that shows you that Fox News is a Pilgrim Society news outlet, and that's why they turned on Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd urge you, if you can afford it, to get Doherty and McGregor's 2 books on the First World War. Oof. I still need to get those, but let me get those. But you can read their full print report on this that I have in their show page. It's eye-opening. And again, I'll still do it. Get your hands on the books by Anthony Sutton. Trilaterals over Washington, his books on Wall Street, and I'd also say get the book by Paul L. Williams, Operation Gladio. And the new book I'm reading is CIA, the Domestic Terrorist Organization by Douglas Valentine. That is another eye-opening book, and that one, we're going to do some shows out of it, but we got to be careful because names, and they're still there.
Yeah. It's still there. This is going to be fascinating. So we'll bring you these programs this spring. And if you appreciate the programs that are produced on Auto Militaris Radio, do like one of the avid viewers from Dublin did just last week, and send a small donation. And you can too through Auto Militaris' support page, and they will put a link in the program notes of this show, because all the equipment that is used to make this program, all the expenses to have these channels run, server run. This all comes from you, the listeners and watchers, and you're the ones that make it possible to bring this red pill kind of truth to the whole world. And I want to thank you for that, and that encourages AJ a lot. This station was begun in June of last year, and it's really done amazing things. And I want to personally thank all the supporters of Automatic House Radio TV, because you've already raised and paid for all the expenses so far, so it gives a bright future.
Yeah. So, in June last year, we started, and we are about 60,000 page reviews away from 1 million.
That's pretty good.
Yep. So keep it up, keep supporting us, and our big goal is to go totally independent, so we can have our own servers and everything. Because what we do on these programs, our time is limited on the controlled servers.
That's true. The globalists are shut down. So it's been an honor to be with you on Auto Militaris Radio with you, AJ, and thank you for the invite once again.
Yep. This is Auto Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.